Hello and welcome. I'm Ape711, also known as Imaginary Studios, and today I'll be talking about the ways that I have invented to measure statistics in Pokemon. So this is things like simply measuring just how good a Pokemon is. Possibly, you can measure like their damage output, how much damage they take, and so much more. It's very similar to in most sports how they have like statistics. It's a really good way to tell just how good a Pokemon is because there really isn't like a set way to do that right now. Like in Pokemon, your team building, you see the stats, you see the moves they have, you see their types, but you can't really. None of that's going to actually tell you how good they're going to be. And even like with experience, you can't really say, is this Pokemon actually better? And this nothing's 100%, but it's a really good way of just really seeing a Pokemon's effect on the metagame. And there's a lot of different statistics, and I have like a spreadsheet. This is not that. This is just a presentation, and you'll get to see all the different ones. So the standard measurements. This is like how many total turns they played, how many kills they had, how many deaths is not a measurement. It's going to be one, but I'll get more on that later. But with the turns, there's a lot of different things you have to measure. You have to measure turns that they use a move, or like turns that the Pokemon used a move, turns that the Pokemon was on the field when the opponent used a move, turns that they were just on the field at all, turns whenever they took like active damage, turns whenever they dealt active damage, turns where they either deal active damage or they use a set-up move that boosts their attack, or turns that they took or turns that they took active damage or use a setup move that boosts defense. All of those are important. All of those are necessary. This doesn't really tell you much. What you can do with this is what's important. And then also damage statistics. You need to be able to measure the total damage dealt is very important, as well as the total damage taken. So what this tells you is now you can measure how many attacks per kill by taking their kills and the times that they use an attack. You can measure how many attacks it took to kill them. You can measure their damage per attack by taking like the ratio of total damage dealt to that. You can measure their damage per attack plus the damage that they did for killing someone. You can measure the damage per attack, but it also includes setup turns. I really like that one because it shows because what I really like about that statistic is that it can show you like how much damage output the Pokemon's gonna be doing. If you just measure damage per attack, right, then you're skipping the setup and you're seeing, oh, this Pokemon got a +6 and is doing this much damage per attack. That's insane. Whereas if you measure this, you're including setup turns and you're understanding that there's like one more turn, and if it's something like Belly Drum, you're also going to measure that in their damage taken because they lost 50% of their health. They're still taking damage. Anyways, so you can also like measure damage taken per attack, and then damage taken per attack will also include setup turns and like damage taken like then. That's all important. And then so that's active damage. So active damage is when you're getting hurt by a move. Then there's passive damage. So you can measure amount of passive damage dealt, amount of passive damage taken, passive damage dealt per turn, amount of passive damage dealt plus the turn setting up said passive damage, and then also for taking passive, and then the same, but for taking passive damage. This is also important. This allows you to so passive damage. That's going to be stuff like entry hazards. That's huge. You measure someone walls, things that put up entry hazards for a living. Those aren't going to have very many like active damage, but they're going to have a ton of passive damage stats. Think about how much stuff you're racking up for like spikes and rocks and like other like statuses like poison with toxic spikes and will-o-wisp, and all of that is really important as well. Like that cannot be like understated how much passive damage has an effect on the game. And then you can also like amount of passive damage taken but with healing, and amount of passive damage taken per turn but with healing. That is important because that's really important because then like that takes into account leftovers. That takes into account all the stuff like that. That's huge. ADR, PDR, TDR. So this is active damage given to taken ratio, passive damage given to taken ratio, total damage given to taken ratio. These are huge. So what you want is to have more active damage given than taken, and passive damage given than taken, and total damage given than taken. Like that's huge because when that happens, when you get something like that, then you start to get like, that's when the really good measurements come in, because you get to understand this Pokemon is dealing out a lot of damage, but it's also taking a lot of damage. It's doing well for me. Is it? Is it? Passive damage, total damage is huge. Think about, you have a really powerful like sweeper Pokemon. They're really fast. They're not going to be taking much damage. That's really cool. That's reflected in the stats. Stats aren't telling you about sped, but it's telling you it didn't take much damage. And here's the thing, is it's not telling you the Pokemon's a tank, because if it does take damage, it's still going to take a lot of damage. So when you're looking at like their damage like taken and like per turns that they took damage, it's going to be a lot. It's so all these stats work together to really tell the same story, but in a much simpler way. Um, Looking at, let's use Ferrothorn as an example. It's not going to have much active damage given, right? But it's going to have a lot of active damage taken. That's going to be a really bad measurement for ADR. It's going to look really bad. And then the Ferrothorn's PDR. Whoo! Think about spikes or rocks, or whatever, setting up in Leech Seed and Iron Barbs. And also with like leftovers and Leech Seed healing is going to be healing you, so you're literally probably going to be taking negative passive damage. Um, that's huge. And then in your TDR, sure, with all the active damage you're taking, maybe that's going to be a bad ratio, but efficiency ratings. And these are the best. These are the way to measure how effective a Pokemon is. The defensive efficiency rating might be my favorite, like one of my favorite ones, because it's so good at measuring how good is a Pokemon defensively. It's turns alive and total damage taken. Because think about this. Let's say Ferrothorn takes like 900% damage, like 900% worth of its health. It's not going to happen. But let's say it does that and it stays alive. That is a messed up TDR. But that is a glorious, that's probably like a glorious active damage taken per turn and defensive efficiency. Think about that. What you want for defensive efficiency, if you never die, like this is a statistical outlier. You want something like Ferrothorn to take a lot of damage per turn, kind of. Kind of in a way. It's not going to, which is really good, because it's going to take a very small amount of damage per turn, because it's Ferrothorn. And it's going to be completely reflected in the defensive efficiency rating. That thing's going to like stay active. It's going to be amazing. And then offensive offensive efficiency. It's the same thing. Now you can measure that with active turns, or you can measure it with just like the turns active, either like taking hits for defensive efficiency or giving hits for offensive efficiency. And I think those are probably better, because it better reflects it. And that's going to be more up to your playstyle, leaving the Pokemon in, yada, 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 yada. Now, other measurements, this is kind of big. When you're looking at analyzing more than one game for Pokemon, like even if it's by different people, you're going to have different sets, still the same Pokemon. And that's when these stats really start to mean things, is when you're looking at different sets, different EV spreads, different items, different moves, but it's all for the same Pokemon. That's when you're really going to see, and they're playing a whole bunch of different things, that's when you're really going to see what's good. You can measure how many games it's played, so then you can measure how much damage it took per game, how much damage it gave per turn, per game, stuff like that. It's great. You can measure, like, so much stuff about passive damage efficiency, being like, oh wow, this guy had to set up passive damage for this amount, is how many turns he had to set up passive damage. That's how passive damage efficiency would be measured. Not turns alive, but how many turns you had to set up the passive damage versus your output, how much passive damage you dealt. That's huge. That's insane. Think about it. You take 3 turns to set up spikes. That's going to be so much worse than taking 1 turn to set up rocks, right? Like, even though it's going to do more damage, is it going to be worth it? Usually, yes, because they won't be switching out. Or like you think about, you can also measure like how, there's so many more measurements that you can do, and they all are so meaningful, and they can tell you like how good a Pokemon is at doing these specific things. And like, it's things that you know when looking at a Pokemon based on its base stats, but it's such a better way of looking at it. Because like, let's look at Vespiquen. It has great like defensive, not great, but has pretty good defensive base stats. And it doesn't have a moveset, and so you try to build it, and you realize it would be bad, because it's bad, but you wouldn't even have to do that. And now here's the best part, is that you create this in a spreadsheet, as I'm going to do. I'm going to share it. You can also put best moves learned, so that's going to be moves like U-turn and other moves that are like important to know if it has it. So you can like sort. Oh, does this Pokemon have U-turn? Yes, I want to put this on my team. You can put the like the typing in. So I'm looking for a fire type that has like a really good defensive utility. I'm looking for like a really good defensive fire type. So probably something that can take a lot of damage. So I'm looking for defensive efficiency and then passive damage, and then the good passive damage stats. That's the hallmark of a good defensive Pokemon. Really good offensive Pokemon when you're looking at, that's going to be stuff like there's going to be probably a lot of damage dealt per turn, and there's also going to be not very much damage taken, hopefully, because faster offensive Pokemon aren't going to actually end up taking much damage, but they're going to end up taking a lot of damage like per hit. You got to think about that. And then there is so much stuff like that. This is a huge thing. It's going to be great for team building. This is the future of. I mean, I don't know if it's the future, but it's going to be like extremely helpful. It's a really good way to analyze how good a Pokemon is. It's math and it's facts, and it's great. And I hope this is gonna become something that's really gonna be like a staple. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more. And specifically commenting, please tell me other things that I could add to analyze, because I'm really good at creating formulas and stuff. Because I think the more stats, the better. Anyways, yeah. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Peace.